Okay, so today we're going to dive deep into DeepSeek, this Chinese AI startup that's, you know, basically sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley.
I know, right?
They're barely 2 years old, and already
It's crazy.
they're giving like Google and OpenAI a run for their money.
Yeah,
So
they're really shaking things up.
yeah. So we're looking at this Forbes article all about DeepSeek, how they're, changing the AI landscape, what makes them unique,
Right.
and why this matters
Mhm.
for the future of AI,
Yeah, and it matters. I think
Yeah.
what's so fascinating about them is like they're not even just trying to compete, They're completely changing the whole game.
Yeah.
They're so much faster. Their models are significantly cheaper, and they're embracing open source, which is really unusual in this industry.
Right. It's like they're saying, here's our amazing AI, come play with it.
Yeah.
What's the strategy behind that?
Well, I mean, it's disrupting the entire industry in a
lot.
big way because their models are available to anyone. So, smaller companies, researchers, independent developers, they can all access this cutting-edge AI, but without those crazy costs that are usually associated with it.
No, that's huge. So let's rewind a little bit. DeepSeek. It was founded in 2023 by this guy, Liang Wenfeng, who's kind of this like prodigy.
Okay.
He's a hedge fund whiz and an AI expert.
Yeah.
And he's actually funding DeepSeek himself,
Yeah.
which is pretty unusual.
Yeah, that's really unusual, but it's a brilliant strategy. I mean, because it allows them to really focus on long-term research
Right.
without having like all this pressure from outside investors.
Yeah.
We're like, where's the money? Where's the return? Short-term gains.
Yeah.
But DeepSeek is thinking long-term. They're thinking years, even decades ahead.
Wow. That's impressive. And they're building for the future with this team of like young, hungry grads straight out of China's top universities. And I think the article mentioned that they actually prioritize skills over years of experience, which makes sense when you're moving at the speed of light. Like DeepSeek is...
Right. It's a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Like they don't want people who are stuck in the old ways of doing things. They want people who are going to push boundaries and think differently.
So let's map out this timeline a little bit. So late 2023, they released DeepSeek Coder, which is a model focused on coding. Then comes DeepSeek LLM, which is a more general language model. But things really explode with DeepSeek V2 in 2024.
Oh, yeah. That's when they dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
DeepSeek V2 was so advanced and their pricing was so low, it triggered this like price war in the Chinese AI market.
Wow.
Yeah. Giants like Baidu and Alibaba, they were forced to react.
Wow.
Suddenly, high-quality AI.
Yeah.
I mean, way more affordable and accessible than ever before.
That's a huge win for consumers. But I imagine it probably sent chills down the spine of those big players who are used to just dominating the market. So what is their secret sauce? How did they manage to achieve all this in such a short time?
Well, they've got a few tricks up their sleeve. First of all, they're masters of reinforcement learning, RL.
Okay.
Their models learn by doing. They're constantly improving based on feedback and rewards.
Okay.
It's like they have a digital brain
Yeah.
that learns from its mistakes and gets better with each attempt.
Okay, I get the basic idea of RL, but the article also mentioned some stuff like mixture of experts and multi-head latent attention. Like, that sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? But it's all based on some very real, innovative AI techniques.
Okay.
So, mixture of experts,
Yeah.
or MOE, means that only a small part of the model is actually active for a specific task. So think of it like a brain surgeon who's only using the tools and the knowledge that's specific to brain surgery instead of bringing their entire medical expertise to every single procedure. So this makes their models super efficient.
So no wasted effort, just laser-focused problem solving. Very clever. Now, how about that multi-head latent attention? What is that all about?
So that's how DeepSeek V3 is able to process information in a much more nuanced way.
Okay.
Imagine having multiple eyes that can focus on different aspects of the data all at the same time.
Okay.
This allows it to understand relationships and context much better than traditional models.
Okay.
Like, imagine trying to understand a really complex sentence.
Okay.
Traditional model might just look at each word in isolation, but DeepSeek V3 uses this multi-head attention to see how all the words relate to each other, understand the nuances of the sentence structure, and even pick up on those subtle cues like sarcasm or humor.
Wow. So that's a game changer, especially for natural language processing. With a language as complex as Chinese, but they mentioned this other thing, distillation, in the article.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Right. So that's their way of taking all the vast knowledge of their large, complex models
In compressing it.
into smaller, more accessible versions.
Okay.
It's kind of like, imagine trying to condense the entire Library of Congress
Wow.
into like a pocket-sized book.
Ah.
That's essentially what they're doing with AI, making this powerful AI available to anyone with a laptop, not just those with, massive server farms.
Right. That's pretty incredible. So they're fast, efficient, open source, but do their models actually stack up against the big players in terms of performance?
That's where DeepSeek R1 comes in. They launched it just this January.
Yeah.
And this model is all about reasoning and problem solving.
Okay.
It's their direct challenge to OpenAI's top model.
Wow.
And early reports indicate that.
Yeah.
It's more than holding its own.
That's impressive. And here's where things get really interesting. Hugging Face, which is this major player in the open source AI world. They've been so impressed with DeepSeek R1 that they've launched a project called OpenR1 to try and replicate its training process.
That's wild. That's a huge testament. DeepSeek's impact, the open source community, is actively working to understand and build upon their work. It shows just how much this relatively young company has already influenced the field.
So we have this fast-moving, innovative company that's not afraid to share their knowledge, and it's already attracting attention from major players. But let's zoom out for a second. What does DeepSeek's rise actually mean for the world of AI? What about for the tech rivalry between China and the US? And what about for us, everyday people who are going to be using this technology?
For starters, it's a major shakeup. The whole competitive landscape. DeepSeek is forcing the big players to step up their game.
Yeah.
Which ultimately means we all benefit from better and cheaper AI.
It's like a ripple effect, like DeepSeek's doing their thing, and it's causing everyone else to have to adapt and improve.
Exactly.
Oh.
And their commitment to these open source models is making AI accessible to a much wider range of people and organizations.
It's amazing.
This could spark a whole new wave of innovation, because now more people can experiment and build with these tools.
That's exciting to consider the possibilities, but DeepSeek must face some challenges too, right? It can't all be smooth sailing.
Oh, of course there are challenges. One of the biggest ones is the compute gap. They simply don't have access to the same level of raw computing power as their rivals in the U.S. And, the export controls on those advanced chips are making it even harder for them to catch up.
So it's like they're running a marathon with weights strapped to their ankles. What other hurdles are they facing?
Well, building trust is another big one. They're still a new player, and they need to kind of prove themselves against these established giants.
Right.
Some people might be skeptical of their incredibly low prices and wonder if there's a catch.
Yeah.
Overcoming that perception and establishing a solid reputation is going to be key to their long-term success.
Right, because reputation is everything in this fast-paced tech world. And speaking of fast-paced, that brings us to another challenge, staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. The AI field is evolving at breakneck speed.
That's crazy.
I know. What's cutting edge today might be obsolete tomorrow.
Yeah.
DeepSeek needs to constantly innovate, push boundaries if they want to stay relevant.
They're on a treadmill that never stops accelerating.
Right.
No time to rest. You just got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And then there's the elephant in the room.
You're talking about censorship, right?
Yeah.
It's no secret that they operate within the boundaries of the Chinese government's policies. So how much of a hurdle is that for their global ambitions?
It's a significant challenge for sure. In many parts of the world, freedom of expression is a core value, and there's a lot of concern about any technology that could be used to suppress those dissenting voices or control information.
Right. So potential users might be wary of a technology that comes with these built-in restrictions, especially in those regions that prioritize free speech and open access to information. So how does DeepSeek address this? Can they even hope to compete on a global stage if their technology is seen as potentially restricted or controlled?
It's a tricky situation. They'll need to find a way to balance the requirements of operating within China with the expectations of a global market that values this openness and transparency.
It's a tough balancing act. But I am struck by their commitment to open source development. Even within those constraints, it suggests that they are at least trying to find ways to make their technology more accessible and less restricted.
Yeah, I agree. It's worth noting that the open source community is also working to address the censorship issue. The OpenR1 project we talked about is specifically designed to be free from censorship and restrictions.
So there are efforts both within DeepSeek and in the broader open source community to try and make this technology more open and accessible. That's encouraging. But even with all this momentum, there's still a lot of unknowns, right?
Absolutely. DeepSeek's story is still being written. Right. Their success so far is remarkable. But the challenges ahead are significant. It's going to be really fascinating to see how they navigate this complex landscape of AI development, geopolitics, and ethical considerations in the years to come.
Yeah, it's a story full of twists and turns. And we're all along for the ride. But we've reached the end of part 1 of our DeepSeek deep dive. Make sure to join us for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into the implications of their rise and what it could mean for the future of AI. Until then, keep those neurons firing.
Keep them firing.
See ya.
Welcome back to our deep dive into DeepSeek. I'm still processing how fast they've become this major force in AI. It's like they just came out of nowhere and we're like, boom, here we are.
I know, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Their approach is so disruptive.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to watch. One of the things that really stands out to me is their focus on efficiency.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's definitely worth digging into. They're getting these incredible results, but with way fewer resources than those big tech giants.
Yeah.
How are they doing that? Well, it's a combination of things. Their use of reinforcement learning, or RL, is a big part of it.
Right.
Remember, their models are constantly learning and adapting through trial and error. And that's a much more efficient way to train AI compared to those traditional methods that require those massive data sets and that brute force approach.
So it's like they're teaching their AI to be a smart learner, instead of just throwing tons of data at it and hoping for the best.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're training their models to learn how to learn, which is a far more efficient and sophisticated approach.
Wow.
And then you have their choice of model architectures, specifically the mixture of experts approach, or MOE, by only activating the parts of the model that are needed for a specific task. They dramatically reduce those computational costs.
So instead of the whole model being engaged for every single task, it's only the relevant experts that are called in.
Exactly.
That sounds incredibly efficient.
It is. It's like having a team of specialists on call, but you only pay for the ones you actually need. And this is a big part of how they're able to offer these low prices.
Okay, so those low prices are raising some eyebrows. Some people are like, wait, is this sustainable? Can they really disrupt the market and offer these AI services at a fraction of the cost of their competitors?
That is the million-dollar question. Right now, their focus seems to be on research and development.
Okay.
They do offer some paid API services for developers who want to use their models.
Okay.
But those prices are still significantly lower, often 80% less than what you'd see from companies like OpenAI.
That's a massive difference. So how are they funding all of this? Are they just relying on Liang, Wenfeng's deep pockets indefinitely?
Yeah, it's a question a lot of people are asking. They're going to need to figure out a way to generate revenue, to sustain their growth, and continue their research. Maybe they'll explore partnerships, offer customized solutions, or even license their models
to other companies. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their business model evolves. But beyond the business side, there's a bigger picture here, right? DeepSeek's rise says something about the global AI landscape.
Absolutely. I mean, their success highlights this growing influence of China in the world of AI for a long time. The U.S. has been seen as the leader in AI research and development, but DeepSeek is challenging that notion.
It's kind of a wake-up call for Silicon Valley. Hey, you can't just rest on your laurels. Well, companies like DeepSeek are out here pushing the boundaries and redefining what's possible.
Yeah, and it's not just about national pride. The competition between China and the U.S. in AI has huge implications for the future of technology, the economy, and even potentially global security.
It's like this high-stakes race to develop the most advanced, adaptable AI, and the outcome is far from certain.
Exactly. And DeepSeek just adds this whole new layer of complexity to this competition. It's a fascinating dynamic to watch unfold.
Speaking of complex dynamics, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Wow. Censorship, how much of a hurdle is that for their global ambitions?
I mean, it's a significant challenge in a lot of parts of the world. Freedom of expression is a core value. And there's a lot of concern about any technology that could be used to suppress dissenting voices or control information.
So potential users might be wary of a technology that comes with these built-in restrictions, especially in regions that prioritize free speech and open access to information.
Exactly.
So how does DeepSeek address this? Can they even hope to compete on a global stage if their technology is seen as potentially restricted or controlled.
It's a tricky situation. They're going to need to find a way to balance the requirements of operating within China with the expectations of a global market. That values openness and transparency.
Yeah. It's a tough balancing act, but I'm struck by their commitment to open source development. Even within those constraints, it suggests that they're at least trying to find ways to make their technology more accessible and less restricted.
I agree. It's worth noting that the open source community is also working to address this issue. You know, the OpenR1 project that we talked about is specifically designed to be free from any censorship or restrictions.
So there are efforts both within DeepSeek and in the broader open source community to try and make this technology more open and accessible.
Exactly.
That's encouraging. But even with all this momentum, there's still a lot of unknowns. Like, what's going to happen next?
I mean, DeepSeek's story is still being written.
Yeah.
Their success so far has been remarkable.
For sure.
But the challenges ahead are significant.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating to see how they navigate this complex landscape of AI development, geopolitics, ethical considerations in the years to come.
It's a story full of twists and turns, and we're all along for the ride.
Yeah.
But we've reached the end of part 2 of our deep dive. Join us for the final part, where we'll explore the broader implications of DeepSeek's rise and what it could mean for the future of AI, and perhaps even the world as we know it. All right, so welcome back to the final part of our DeepSeek deep dive. And, you know, we've covered a lot of their rise and even the geopolitical stuff.
Right, all the big stuff.
Yeah, and those challenges, right? The compute gap, the trust thing that they're going to have to overcome censorship.
Yeah, all those hurdles they got to jump over.
But let's zoom out even more. Like, what does this DeepSeek story, what does it tell us about the future of AI, like, in general?
Right. What does it all mean?
Yeah, not just for the industry folks, but for everyday people like us who are going to be living with this stuff.
Totally. Like, how is this going to affect our lives?
Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure. DeepSeek is a sign that things are changing.
Yeah.
The AI landscape is changing. It's not just Silicon Valley anymore.
Right.
Smaller companies are coming up.
Yeah.
And they've got new ideas, new approaches.
Yeah, it's almost like a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
The old way of doing things, like hoarding all the resources.
The secrecy.
Yeah, all the secrets. It's being challenged by this new way, this speed, this efficiency, and like open collaboration.
It's a whole new wave.
Yeah.
And DeepSeek is like right at the front of it.
And, you know, for those who are comfortable at the top, it's probably a little unsettling.
Yeah, a little scary.
But it's exciting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All these new possibilities.
I know. It's like a whole new world opening up.
Yeah, and this isn't just, you know, some tech industry thing. We talked about, you know, U.S., China, but AI is going to reshape everything.
Oh, yeah.
Industries, economies.
Everywhere it lies.
Like, it's kind of mind-blowing.
I know. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But we're already seeing it happening. Like healthcare, finance, transportation.
Yeah.
Even the entertainment we consume. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, like we're just getting started.
As AI keeps evolving, it's going to have an even bigger impact.
Yeah, it's like we're standing at the edge of this technological revolution. And we can only kind of see just a glimpse of what it could be.
Yeah, and it's a little daunting.
Yeah, it is a little scary.
Yeah, but that's what makes DeepSeek so interesting. They're not just building AI, they're shaping it.
Okay.
And their choices, their successes, even their failures are going to have these ripple effects that we'll feel all over the world.
So it's not just like a business story. It's a human story.
Yeah.
Which brings us to some big questions like what role? What role will AI play in our lives? How do we deal with like the ethical dilemmas that are going to come up?
Yeah. All those tricky questions.
And who's going to be in control of this incredibly powerful technology?
Right. Who gets to decide how it's used?
Yeah, those are questions we all need to think about.
For sure.
DeepSeek is a wake-up call.
It's like a big alarm bell going off saying, hey, the future of AI is being written right now.
Yeah.
And it's up to all of us to shape it.
To make sure that it benefits everyone.
Absolutely.
Powerful stuff. All right, so as we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about. If a startup like DeepSeek can change things this fast, what will the world look like in a year, 5 years? What new stuff will we see? What new problems will we have to solve? And how will we as people and as a society use AI for good?
Those are the big questions.
Yeah.
The future's always uncertain, but it's full of potential. It's both exciting and a little scary.
Yeah.
But as long as we keep asking those questions, pushing those boundaries, and trying to make things better.
Yeah.
I think we can handle this AI revolution
Yeah.
with wisdom and a sense of wonder.
Nicely said. All right, so that is the end of our DeepSeek deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those neurons firing.